Chosen one, pause for a moment and let this truth settle into your spirit, because what is rising in your life right now is not coincidence, and it is not the echo of your imagination. It is a divine summons that has been arriving through dreams, delays, quiet warnings, and moments that felt like nothing yet carried the fingerprints of heaven. And God has brought you here because this is the hour when everything begins to shift inside you. The hour when questions in your heart begin turning into direction. The hour when the fog you have been walking through begins to thin and the path becomes visible. Just as Psalm 32:8 says, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go." And right now, that instruction is stirring in you, even if you can't yet explain why your spirit feels wide awake, because you have been asking again and again when your breakthrough would come, when your life would finally match the weight of the calling inside you, and the answer God is whispering is simple and fierce. It has already begun, but before the blessing becomes visible, you must align with the instruction that prepares you for it, because heaven never pours oil on those unwilling to carry it, and you are standing at a spiritual checkpoint where curiosity ends and calling begins, a place where your soul must rise to meet the moment it was designed for. And the heaviness you have felt lately, the confusion, the restless energy pulsing through your chest, it is not anxiety, it is not fear, it is the spiritual alarm of Romans 13:11 ringing through your being, where it says, "The hour has come for you to wake from sleep." Because heaven is no longer whispering. Heaven is summoning you into the next chapter, and the trembling inside your spirit is simply your soul recognizing that the shift is happening in real time, not someday, not later, but now. And every sign you've noticed, every repeated number, every flash of intuition, every strange dream, they are signals designed to pull you back into your identity, calling you to remember that you were never meant to simply survive this life. You were meant to walk with purpose, clarity, and divine fire. And though you may think you missed God's voice, the truth is you were only overwhelmed by noise. And now that the noise is fading, the direction is surfacing, and God is placing His warriors where they need to be, positioning hearts, repositioning lives, because the world is in spiritual collapse, and you are not here to be a spectator. You are here to be a disruption, a living contradiction to the darkness unfolding around you. And this calling is not optional, because heaven has activated you with or without your permission, knowing that your spirit carries something urgent for this generation. And even if you feel unprepared, you must remember what God said to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1:7. "Do not say I am too young, for you must go to everyone I send you to, and say whatever I command you." Which means you are not expected to walk in your own confidence. You are expected to walk in obedience, because obedience is the doorway to the supernatural acceleration God is preparing to release in your life. And the shaking happening across the world, the fires, the floods, the political confusion, the rising fear, they are not just events, they are spiritual weather patterns shaping the atmosphere for those who have eyes to see. And you are one of them, chosen not to drown in the noise, but to rise above it with clarity, because the Spirit is teaching you to listen, not with your ears, but with your inner knowing, the same breath that God used to bring Adam to life, flowing now as intuition, conviction, discernment, and every nudge you have felt is a map pulling you toward the next chapter. And even if your mind doubts, your spirit already knows the truth. And that is why the uneasiness you feel is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of awakening, because heaven is guiding you through a kind of spiritual intelligence that does not shout but whispers, does not push but pulls, does not confuse but confirms. And as you follow it, you will move through chaos untouched, just as Psalm 91 promises. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. Because those walking in divine alignment are protected, guided, and instructed in ways the world cannot understand. And this is only the beginning of what is unfolding in you. Before we go deeper into this urgent message, I need you to do 3 things. Hit that like button, subscribe. We're on the path to 40,000 subscribers, and you don't want to miss the life-changing messages coming your way. Leave a comment with the number 99. This number carries immense power, and by leaving it, you will amplify this message and send a signal to the universe that you're ready for the truth, and to those who are supporting us and giving to this ministry. Whether through the comment section or the super thanks feature, understand this: you are not just a giver, you are a collaborator. We are partners in this divine assignment. Your seed isn't random, it's alignment. It's your way of saying, God, I'm ready to move when you speak. Right now, the world is shaking in ways that ordinary eyes cannot read, but your spirit has been sensing the tremors long before the news ever reported them, because God has been tuning your inner frequency to hear what others ignore. And that is why your heart has felt unsettled, why your dreams have become sharper, why your emotions surge without clear reason, because as Amos 3:7 says, surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. And even if you do not consider yourself a prophet, your spirit has been receiving prophetic downloads in real time. Bits of truth wrapped in symbols, warnings hidden inside impressions, guidance woven into sudden clarity. And the world calls it intuition, but heaven calls it instruction. And now that spiritual sensitivity inside you is becoming stronger because you are being trained, stretched, awakened for an assignment that will require you to operate beyond logic, beyond fear, beyond the limitations you once believed were permanent. And this is why the systems around you are collapsing, because foundations built on deception cannot hold the weight of this moment in history. The earth is groaning as described in Romans 8:22. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. And those groans manifest as chaos, confusion, and crisis. But you were not positioned here to crumble under it. You were placed here to stand with clarity while others drown in uncertainty, because you were not built to echo the narratives of politicians or the panic of the culture. You were built to carry revelation, truth, and discernment into a world that has forgotten what light feels like. And that is why you often feel different, detached, misunderstood, because the kind of vision God has placed inside you is too sharp for those who still choose to see with dull eyes. And even when you tried to shrink yourself to fit in, something in your soul resisted, because you cannot compress divine identity into human expectations. And no matter how many times you tried to be normal, you always felt the pull of something greater tugging at your spirit. A call that refused to die, no matter how much life tried to bury it. Because God has been shaping you through storms, through heartbreak, through isolation, through moments that felt like endings, but were actually beginnings. Just as Joseph's story shows in Genesis 50:20, where he declares, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good," meaning every betrayal, delay, and disappointment you walked through was part of the divine strategy designed to sharpen you, strengthen you, and sculpt you into someone capable of carrying the weight of this assignment. And that is why you are being separated from places and people who no longer align with your spirit. Not because you are unlovable, not because you are difficult, but because your mission requires a level of spiritual clarity that cannot thrive in environments polluted with distraction, envy, or small thinking. And you may feel lonely, but you are not alone, because even now, God is gathering your spiritual tribe across countries and cultures, individuals who carry a similar frequency, a similar fire, a similar hunger for truth. And you will recognize them not by appearance, but by resonance, by the way something in your spirit rises when they speak, by the way your soul feels seen in their presence. Because these are not ordinary connections, these are divine alignments meant to fortify you for the road ahead. And while the world operates through algorithms and labels, heaven operates through purpose, and everyone being positioned in your path right now has a role to play in your unfolding destiny, just as you have a role to play in theirs, because God is building a spiritual network beneath the surface, an unseen army rising quietly but powerfully, being shaped through prayer, through dreams, through obedience, and you are part of that formation, chosen not because of perfection, but because of willingness. Because even in your doubt, you keep reaching. Even in your weakness, you keep moving. And that determination is what heaven responds to. Because 2 Chronicles 16:9 says, "The eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him." And your commitment has been noticed even when you thought your prayers fell into silence. And now God is preparing to strengthen you in ways you have never experienced, to pour wisdom into you that you didn't earn through study, to give you clarity that doesn't come from books, but from spiritual downloads. And this is why your dreams have become so vivid lately, because night has become the classroom where God teaches your spirit what your mind is not yet ready to receive. And those dreams may feel strange, intense, even overwhelming, but they are messages, maps, prophetic directions designed to navigate the storm ahead. And if you record them, meditate on them, ask for interpretation, you will begin to notice patterns, guidance, and confirmation woven through every symbol, every encounter, because God does not waste a dream. Just as He spoke to Daniel in visions of the night in Daniel 7:1, and He is speaking to you the same way now, inviting you to understand that your life is no longer functioning in one realm, but two. And your spiritual awareness is expanding faster than your mind can process, which is why time feels distorted, why memories slip in and out, why emotions hit like sudden waves, because you are being recalibrated, upgraded, restructured at a soul level to carry revelation in a generation drowning in confusion. And what feels like falling apart is actually divine reconstruction, the breaking open of the seed before it rises. You may not realize it yet, but everything in your life is being rearranged with precision, because God is not preparing you for a small assignment. He is preparing you for influence in realms you have not even imagined. And that level of calling requires a level of inner transformation that cannot be rushed. And this is why your heart has felt heavy at times, why old habits suddenly lost their flavor, why people you once trusted suddenly feel distant, why your mind refuses to settle for surface answers. Because the Spirit is stretching you beyond your previous capacity, expanding your soul so that when the blessing arrives, you can carry it without breaking. And this spiritual expansion often feels like chaos at first. But it is the same holy pressure that Moses felt in Exodus 3 when the burning bush called him out of the life he knew and into the destiny he feared. And God told him, "I will be with you." A promise that was never about comfort, but about empowerment. And that promise rests on you too, rising through your spirit with a quiet authority that tells you, even if you feel unprepared, heaven is not. And that is why the doors that once opened easily now stay locked. Not because God is withholding from you, but because He is redirecting you to doors that align with the upgraded version of who you are becoming. And you must not grieve the closures, because every no is making space for a yes shaped exactly for your purpose. And what feels like loss is actually the pruning Jesus spoke of in John 15:2, where He said, "Every branch that bears fruit He prunes so that it may bear more fruit." And pruning is never pleasant, but it is always prophetic, because it proves that fruit is coming, increase is coming, and the weight of what is coming requires the removal of everything that cannot thrive in your next season. And this is why isolation has wrapped around you like a shadow, because God needed to pull you out of the crowd so you could hear Him clearly, away from opinions, away from noise, away from expectations that never belong to you. And though loneliness tried to convince you something was wrong, the truth is you were being protected, hidden, refined in the wilderness, just like Elijah in 1 Kings 17, when God took him to a solitary place and fed him supernaturally, because the next chapter required a level of boldness no ordinary environment could produce. And that same spiritual isolation is shaping you right now, molding you into someone with sharper discernment, fiercer faith, and deeper authority. And soon the season of hiding will break open into a season of stepping forward, because God never isolates indefinitely. He isolates to ignite, and that ignition is already sparking inside you, rising in moments you can't explain, showing up as sudden ideas, renewed confidence, unexpected conviction, the kind of divine fire that wakes you at night because your spirit knows it is time to rise. And this fire is not emotional hype, it is holy inheritance, because God placed a flame inside you before you were born, just as He told Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Meaning your calling predates your existence. Your mission was written before your first breath, and the world cannot erase what heaven has ordained. And now that flame is breaking through every layer of doubt, fear, and limitation that life tried to bury it under, pushing you toward a version of yourself that you have never met, but heaven has always known. And this inner fire is why you could not settle for a life that others found comfortable. Why mediocrity made your spirit ache. Why injustice stirred something fierce and righteous inside you, because you were not created to blend into a world drowning in shadows. You were created to rise like a living torch, a carrier of divine truth in a generation starving for clarity. And this fire inside you is not meant to be tamed. It is meant to be unleashed, to break chains, to shift atmospheres, to awaken others by the sheer force of your presence. And when you let this fire burn freely, you will begin to walk with a boldness that does not come from personality, but from partnership with God. The kind of boldness that Peter displayed in Acts 4:13, when people saw his courage and realized it came not from education, but from having been with Jesus. And that same evidence will rest on you, visible to those who encounter you, a quiet magnetism that makes people turn their heads. A spiritual authority that makes darkness recoil. A clarity that cuts through confusion like light breaking through fog. And you must stop suppressing it to make others comfortable, because shrinking does not serve your calling. Hiding does not serve your mission, and dimming your flame does not serve the world. Your fire was designed to illuminate paths for others lost in silence, and every time you step into your true identity, heaven expands its reach through you, because God moves through willing vessels, not perfect ones. And you have shown again and again that no matter how many doubts rise, you still say yes, you still get back up, you still press forward, and heaven honors persistence more than perfection. And because of that, your breakthrough is already forming in the unseen, waiting for the moment your alignment meets your assignment. And when it does, acceleration will pour into your life so quickly you will not be able to explain it logically, because it will not be logical, it will be supernatural. What you are feeling right now, that sense of pressure building in your chest, that mix of anticipation and uncertainty, that stirring that won't let you rest the way you used to, is proof that heaven is shifting the weight of your assignment into place. And even though it feels intense, it is not here to crush you. It is here to awaken you. Because God is not elevating you into comfort, He is elevating you into purpose. And purpose always arrives with a demand, a pull, a stretching that makes you stronger, even when it feels like breaking. And this same holy pressure fell on Esther when the fate of her people rested on her voice. And Mordecai reminded her in Esther 4:14, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" And that same truth echoes through your spirit now, because you were positioned in this generation for a precise moment, a moment where your courage, your clarity, and your obedience will matter more than you realize. And this is why life has felt unusual lately, as if the ground is shifting under your feet, and the air around you carries a strange intensity, because your spirit is picking up signals from heaven that your next chapter is not approaching. It is unfolding, and the old structures in your life are collapsing, not because you failed, but because you have outgrown them, and God refuses to let you shrink back into versions of yourself that you surpassed long ago. And He is stripping away what no longer aligns, even if your mind clings to what used to feel familiar, because divine transformation never asks for your comfort. It asks for your surrender, the same surrender Jesus called for in Matthew 16:24, when He said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me," not as punishment, but as the doorway to power, clarity, and destiny. And the cross you carry right now may look like exhaustion, transition, separation, or uncertainty, but it is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are being positioned with intention for the season of impact ahead. And this positioning is why certain people have been drifting away, not because they are bad, but because they no longer match the vibration of where you are going. And their departure is not abandonment, it is alignment, because God is protecting your energy, your peace, and your focus from influences that would dilute your calling. And He is preparing to surround you with those who sharpen your spirit, People who recognize your value without being intimidated by it. People who ignite your purpose instead of draining your fire, the kind of divine connections described in Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And as these new alignments begin to form, you will feel your spirit rise with fresh confidence, fresh courage, fresh clarity, because destiny always unfolds through divine relationships. And heaven is orchestrating those connections, even now, placing individuals strategically across your path. People who will challenge you, elevate you, and accelerate you. And as this alignment takes place, you will begin noticing sudden shifts, opportunities appearing without explanation, closed doors reopening, resources flowing from unexpected places. Because when you step into divine rhythm, heaven responds with motion, not delay. And this motion is already visible in the way your heart has been awakening, in the way you have started craving deeper truths, in the way you no longer tolerate what drains your soul. And that inner transformation is proof that God is rewiring you at a foundational level, building strength where there was once insecurity, building resilience where there was once fear, building authority where there was once hesitation. And every emotional surge, every moment of restlessness, every tear that falls without a clear reason is part of that reconstruction. Because Psalm 126 verse 5 promises, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." And your tears have not been wasted, they have been seeds planted in faith, and heaven has counted every one of them, knowing the harvest they will produce. And this harvest will not just be material, it will be spiritual, emotional, relational, the kind of restoration that rebuilds your heart from the inside out, making you stronger, steadier, and clearer than you have ever been. And soon you will look back and realize that the season you thought would break you actually built you, and the nights you felt abandoned were the nights God was closest, shaping you in silence, preparing you in stillness, and teaching you how to hear His voice in ways that bypass the noise of the world, because He is drawing you into deeper intuition, deeper discernment, deeper awareness, the kind that allows you to walk through storms with calm, through chaos with vision, through uncertainty with confidence. And this is why your old coping mechanisms no longer work, why distractions no longer soothe you, why shallow conversations no longer satisfy, because your soul is rising into a higher dimension, a higher calling, a higher awareness of who you are and who you are becoming. And nothing in your old life has the capacity to hold the new version of you that God is bringing forth. And the sooner you embrace that shift, the stronger your steps will become, because this is not a season to cling, it is a season to elevate. Something powerful is happening inside you, something that most people around you cannot see, but heaven sees it clearly, and your spirit feels it deeply, because the old cycles that once held you are breaking. The old fears that once silenced you are losing their grip, and the old doubts that once clouded your mind are dissolving under the light of revelation that God is pouring into your inner world. And this breaking of old cycles is not random, it is divine intervention, just as Isaiah 43:19 declares. "See, I'm doing a new thing, now it springs up, do you not perceive it?" And while your mind may struggle to understand the shift, your spirit already recognizes it, because you are not being improved. You are being transformed, rebuilt, reshaped with spiritual precision, so you can carry the next assignment with authority, clarity, and strength. And this transformation explains why your old environment feels too small, why conversations that once energized you now bore you, why habits that once soothed you now feel empty, because your soul is evolving faster than your surroundings. And the mismatch is not a sign of disorder, but a sign of elevation, because God is stretching you into a version of yourself that aligns with His original blueprint, the version He breathed into existence before life's challenges tried to smother your fire. And that blueprint is beginning to reawaken inside you, stirring your purpose, awakening your courage, igniting your spiritual senses. And this inner ignition is why you can no longer pretend to be who you used to be, why you can no longer shrink to make others comfortable, why you can no longer hide the brilliance that God planted inside you, because the time for hiding has ended. And just as Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world," that truth is roaring in your spirit now, reminding you that you were never created to blend into a dim environment. You were created to illuminate it, to influence it, to shift it with your presence, because your presence carries frequency, your voice carries power, your spirit carries authority, and heaven has been waiting for this moment when you finally stop apologizing for the weight of your calling, because that weight is not a burden, it is evidence of divine trust. And when God trusts someone, He equips them with spiritual fire that cannot be extinguished by criticism, doubt, or cultural pressure. And that fire is stirring in you now, rising in moments when you least expect it, showing up in flashes of boldness, in sudden insight, in a feeling that you were made for more. And you must not ignore those moments, because they are invitations, not coincidences. And the more you lean into them, the clearer your path becomes, because God is speaking to you more frequently now, not just through scripture, not just through prayer, but through intuition, through dreams, through unexpected encounters, through moments of stillness, when your heart suddenly understands what your mind could not explain. And this rise in spiritual sensitivity is not strange. It is necessary, because God is positioning you as a stabilizer in a world full of fear, and people will begin to sense something different in you, the same way people recognized the presence of God on Moses when his face shone after meeting with the Lord in Exodus 34:29. And that same glow will rest on you, not physically but spiritually, evident in the way you carry peace into chaotic spaces, evident in the way your voice calms hearts, evident in the way your presence brings clarity to confused minds, because you're being shaped into a lighthouse, a soul that others will look to when the world grows dark. And this shaping is already visible in the way your discernment has sharpened, the way your vision has expanded, the way your heart has softened yet strengthened at the same time. And all of this is preparation for impact, because you were not sent here to simply survive life. You were sent here to shift the spiritual atmosphere around you, and the shift begins with obedience. Not perfect action, but consistent obedience. The kind of obedience Abraham showed in Genesis 12:1, when God called him to leave everything familiar and move into the unknown, trusting a promise he could not yet see. And God rewarded that obedience with blessings that rippled through generations. And that same generational impact rests on your calling, because your obedience now will unlock breakthroughs, not just for you, but for those connected to you, people you haven't even met yet, people whose lives will change because you dared to say yes when fear tried to convince you to stay silent. And this is why the spiritual pressure you feel is so strong, because heaven is preparing to release something through you that cannot be released through anyone else. something unique to your design, something woven into your spirit long before you entered this world. And as this release draws closer, you will notice sudden shifts in your thinking, sudden clarity about past events, sudden connections between moments that once felt random, because God is stitching your story together in ways that reveal purpose, where you once saw pain, and meaning where you once saw confusion, and strength where you once saw weakness. And once this revelation settles in your spirit, you will realize you were never behind, never forgotten, never forsaken, because every detour, delay, and disappointment was part of the divine construction of who you are becoming. The shift happening inside you right now is not only spiritual, but strategic, because God is not simply awakening your soul. He is positioning your steps, aligning your timing, sharpening your instincts, so that when the next door swings open, you will not hesitate. You will walk through it with the authority of someone who finally understands why every past season unfolded the way it did. And this understanding is crucial because your next chapter will require confidence, born not from ego, but from revelation, the kind of confidence David carried when he faced Goliath. Not because he was the strongest, but because he remembered the victories God had already given him in secret places. And in 1 Samuel 17:37, he declared, "The Lord, who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, will rescue me from this Philistine." And that same boldness is rising in you, shaped by every silent battle you fought, every night you cried, every moment you endured what others never even noticed. And heaven took note of all of it, because the battles no one saw prepared you for the victories everyone will witness. And this is why the enemy tried so hard to break you in private, why spiritual pressure intensified in seasons when your life looked quiet on the outside, because the enemy knows your public impact will be far greater than your private struggle. And he hoped your private struggle would silence the destiny written over you. But you survived it, and now your survival is being turned into strength, your wounds into wisdom, your endurance into authority. Because Psalm 34:19 says, "The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all." And every deliverance becomes a weapon in your spiritual arsenal. And God is equipping you with these weapons, because the days ahead will require a steady spirit, a focused heart, and a mind tuned to divine frequency rather than cultural noise. For the world is entering a season where truth will feel rare, fear will feel normal, and confusion will spread like wildfire. But you will walk through that chaos with clarity, because your discernment is being upgraded, your intuition is being refined, your spiritual hearing is being tuned to frequencies others cannot hear. And as this tuning intensifies, you may feel moments where the world feels strangely distant, where conversations feel hollow, where familiar spaces no longer feel aligned. And that detachment is not depression, it is elevation, because you are rising above the noise of this era, lifted into a perspective that allows you to see not just what is happening, but why it is happening. And this elevated sight mirrors what God revealed to Habakkuk in Habakkuk 2:1, when the prophet said, "I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me." Meaning the ability to hear God often comes from changing your vantage point. And that is what he is doing with you now, lifting you above distractions so you can hear instruction, raising you above confusion so you can see clarity, pulling you away from noise so you can detect direction. And this new vantage point is why you have begun seeing deeper into people's intentions, why your spirit reacts immediately when something is off, why your peace withdraws when someone's energy contradicts your purpose, because your discernment is no longer optional, it is essential, and God is sharpening it the same way he sharpened Samuel's ears in 1 Samuel 3:10, when the Lord called to him and Samuel responded, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And that same posture is being formed in your heart, a readiness that says, "God, whatever you speak, I will hear, and whatever you instruct, I will obey." And as that obedience grows, so will your influence, because heaven promotes the obedient, not the ambitious. And once heaven promotes you, no human can demote you, and doors will open that no one can shut. As Revelation 3:8 promises, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." And this open door may not look like what you expect. It may come disguised as a challenge, a shift, a transition you did not plan. But inside that door is everything your spirit has been aching for, and God is preparing your heart so that when you stand before it, you will recognize it immediately. Not by appearance, but by resonance, because your spirit will know. This is it. This is the moment. This is the chapter. Heaven wrote for me, and when that moment arrives, you must not freeze. You must not question your worth. You must not shrink out of old insecurities that no longer define you, because God has already declared you capable, chosen, equipped, and called. And the only thing left is your agreement, your yes, your willingness to stand in everything he has placed inside you, even when you feel the tremble of uncertainty in your chest. Because courage is not the absence of trembling. Courage is the decision to move anyway, empowered by the truth of Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And that promise is the foundation under your feet now, steadying you, lifting you, guiding you into the season heaven has been preparing for years. There is a rising power within you that you cannot fully explain, a quiet strength that keeps pulling you forward even on days when your body feels tired and your mind feels stretched. And that strength is not coming from willpower. It is coming from the Spirit of God, anchoring you in purpose, reminding you that you are not walking into your future alone, because heaven has already gone before you, clearing paths, shifting circumstances, and preparing divine encounters that will accelerate everything in your life the moment you step into alignment. And alignment is exactly what God is teaching you now. Aligning your desires with his plan, aligning your decisions with his wisdom, aligning your movements with his timing, because timing is everything in the kingdom. And when your timing matches heaven's timing, breakthroughs that once felt impossible suddenly manifest without resistance. And this is why Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time, because when the moment is right, beauty rises from ashes, order rises from chaos, clarity rises from confusion, and the beauty that is rising in your life now is not external, it is internal. A beauty made of strength, truth, resilience, and spiritual maturity. And that maturity is forming through every test you've endured, every disappointment you survived, every battle you didn't think you could win, but somehow did. Because God was fighting for you even when you felt alone, just as Exodus 14:14 promises, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." And even in moments when you were not still, he fought anyway, covering you with grace, protecting you from traps you didn't see, preserving your spirit from attacks that should have crushed you, because he knew the weight of the assignment he placed inside you, and he knew you needed protection until your strength caught up with your calling, and that time has come. Your strength is rising, your awareness is sharpening, your authority is awakening. And you are stepping into a level of spiritual identity that cannot be shaken by opinions, fear, or circumstances, because you no longer draw your confidence from the world. You draw it from God's presence, the same presence that carried Daniel into the lion's den without fear, because he knew the lions could not devour someone protected by purpose. And Daniel 6:23 says, "No wound was found on him because he trusted in his God." And that same protection rests on you now, surrounding you with invisible strength, making you untouchable to forces designed to distract or destroy you. And as your trust deepens, you will notice the shift happening in your atmosphere, because trust opens spiritual doors that fear keeps closed. And as those doors open, revelation pours in, clarity pours in, wisdom pours in, giving you insight far beyond what your age or experience should allow, because God is accelerating your understanding, teaching you through dreams, through silence, through sudden knowing. And this knowing is why you can sense when something is wrong long before it becomes visible. Why you can feel dishonesty even when someone's words sound convincing. Why your peace reacts instantly to environments that clash with your destiny. And this heightened discernment is not paranoia, it is protection. The kind of protection Jesus promised in John 10:27. "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." And you have been listening even when you didn't realize it, because your spirit responds to God naturally, like a compass returning to its true north. And now that your discernment is refining, you will walk through life with a clarity that others will not understand, but they will feel it. They will feel the steadiness in your presence, the certainty in your voice, the confidence in your steps. And some will be drawn to it while others will be intimidated by it, because light always reveals what darkness tries to hide, and you carry light in a world built on shadows. And that light is not accidental, it is intentional, because Jesus said in John 8:12, "Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And that light is the reason you cannot go back to who you used to be, the reason your old patterns feel impossible to return to, the reason your spirit no longer tolerates relationships, conversations, or environments that drain your energy or distract you from purpose, because your elevation requires separation, not out of arrogance, but out of stewardship. Since everything God is about to do through you requires a clear mind, a guarded heart, and a purified spirit, and purification often comes through fire. The kind of fire described in Zechariah 13:9, "I will refine them like silver and test them like gold." And that refining is why your emotions have been unpredictable, why your dreams have intensified, why your desires are shifting, because God is burning away what was attached to the old version of you and preparing you for the new authority rising within you. An authority that will shape your future, influence your surroundings, and awaken others through your example, because your life itself will become a testimony, a living proof that transformation is real, that purpose is powerful, and that God fulfills every promise in His perfect time. Everything around you is accelerating now, not because life is chaotic, but because heaven is moving, shifting pieces on the board faster than your mind can process, aligning circumstances, redirecting relationships, and opening pathways you did not even know existed. And this acceleration is not meant to overwhelm you, but to position you, because God is ushering you into a season where opportunities will appear suddenly, breakthroughs will unfold effortlessly, and clarity will arrive instantly. The kind of instant clarity that inspired Isaiah when he said in Isaiah 30:21, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, you will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" And that guiding voice is becoming louder in your spirit, not as noise, but as certainty, rising in the quiet moments, the restless nights, the unexpected pauses that make you stop and feel the shift happening inside you, because you are learning to walk by revelation rather than routine, by intuition rather than fear. And this shift explains why the plans you once relied on have started falling apart, why the strategies that worked before now feel ineffective, why the goals you once chased no longer excite you, because God is breaking you free from human timelines and pulling you into divine timing. And divine timing rarely looks predictable. It looks like sudden change, sudden endings, sudden beginnings, all preparing you for a future so much larger than the one you once settled for. And that future will require flexibility, the willingness to move when God moves, the readiness to release what He removes, and the courage to trust what He brings, because not every closed door is rejection, often it is protection, the same protection God showed Paul in Acts 16:6, when the Spirit prevented him from entering a region that looked promising but was not aligned with the divine plan. And the detours God is creating in your life right now are not punishments, but shields, redirecting you away from traps, from delays, from people who cannot walk with you into your next chapter. And though these shifts may feel uncomfortable, they are sacred, because God is orchestrating something precise, weaving your life into patterns you will only understand in hindsight. And each pattern is designed to bring you closer to the identity you were born to embody, the identity you have glimpsed in your dreams, in your prayers, in the quiet confidence that rises in your heart during moments when you forget your fears long enough to feel the truth of who you are, and that truth is beginning to speak louder than your doubts, louder than your insecurities, louder than the lies the world once whispered over you. And the more you listen, the more you will feel God pulling you into deeper surrender, deeper trust, deeper faith, because faith is the currency of acceleration, the bridge between where you stand and where heaven is calling you to go. And Hebrews 11:6 reminds us, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Not because God demands perfection, but because faith creates movement, and movement is the language of destiny. And right now, destiny is calling you forward, pulling you out of hesitation, pushing you beyond fear, stirring you into a level of courage you did not know you had. Because spiritual courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move anyway, trusting that God has already gone before you, positioned behind you, and stands beside you, the way He promised in Deuteronomy 31:6. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And as this truth sinks deeper into your spirit, you will begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently, and respond differently to the shifts happening around you, because you will realize that everything you once lost was making room for what heaven is about to deliver. And everything you once questioned is now being answered through revelation flowing into your life at a pace that feels supernatural, because it is. And this supernatural flow will not slow down, it will intensify. And the more you lean into it with trust, the clearer your steps will become, the lighter your burdens will feel, and the faster your life will transform, because you are no longer operating under earthly rules. You are moving in divine rhythm, a rhythm that awakens boldness, strengthens purpose, and reveals pathways no human could have created. And in this rhythm, you will notice how God begins to pull the right people into your life. People who carry wisdom, peace, and alignment. People whose presence feels like confirmation. People who ignite your spirit rather than drain it. And these connections are not random. They are divine appointments sent to prepare you for the impact you are about to make. Because you will not walk into your destiny alone. God is forming a circle around you, a spiritual alliance, a purposeful tribe, the kind described in Psalm 133 verse 1, which says, "How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity." And the unity rising in your life now is not based on common interests, but on shared purpose, on spiritual frequency, on divine assignment. And as your tribe forms, you will begin to feel a sense of belonging that you didn't know you were missing, because for so long you thought something was wrong with you. But the truth is, you were simply surrounded by people who could not recognize your calling. And now, God is bringing you to those who can. You are stepping into a season where everything will begin to make sense, where the weight you carried for years will suddenly reveal its purpose, where the tears you cried in silence will be recognized as seeds that watered the garden of your destiny, because nothing in your life was wasted, not one heartbreak, not one disappointment, not one delay, and God is about to show you why. The same way he revealed purpose to Joseph after years of struggle, the same way he redeemed Job after seasons of pain, and the same way he restored Peter after moments of failure, because restoration is God's specialty. And he's preparing to restore you in ways that exceed your imagination, fulfilling the promise of Joel 2:25. "I will restore to you the years the locusts have eaten." And this restoration will not arrive quietly. It will arrive with force, bursting into your life through unexpected opportunities, divine alignments, supernatural provision, and inner peace so deep that others will question how you found it in a world drowning in chaos. But this peace is a sign that your spirit is aligning with God's rhythm, the rhythm that Jesus described in John 14:27. "My peace I give you, not as the world gives." And this peace will anchor you through every transition, every elevation, every breakthrough that is coming. Because breakthrough is not just approaching, it is already active, woven into decisions you are making, connections you are forming, and shifts happening in your heart that you cannot fully explain yet. And these shifts are preparing you to carry the blessing with maturity, wisdom, and strength. Because what is coming is not small, it is not temporary, it is generational. The kind of blessing that transforms your identity, reshapes your future, and breaks cycles that have followed your family for decades. Because you were born to be a cycle breaker, a generational warrior, someone equipped to interrupt patterns that destroyed those before you, and establish a new lineage built on faith, vision, and divine authority, the kind described in Psalm 112 verse 2. The generation of the upright will be blessed, and that generational blessing starts with you. In your obedience, in your healing, in your courage to rise when everything inside you once told you to shrink. And as you rise, heaven rises with you. opening gates you thought were sealed, unlocking doors that once resisted you, and pouring strength into places where you once felt weak, because this elevation is not based on your perfection, but on your willingness. And you have shown heaven again and again that no matter how confused you felt, no matter how heavy the journey became, you kept moving, you kept believing, you kept reaching for the light, even when darkness tried to swallow you whole. And that resilience has become a fragrance in the spirit, a signal to heaven that you are ready for the next assignment, the next level, the next season written for you. And this season will require boldness, the kind of boldness Joshua displayed when God told him repeatedly in Joshua 1:7, "Be strong and very courageous," because stepping into destiny is never comfortable, but it is always transformative, and every step you take forward will carry the weight of that courage, awakening not only your own identity, but inspiring those who witness your rise, because your life is becoming a message, a living sermon, a testimony of what God can do with someone who refuses to give up. And this testimony will touch hearts, shift mindsets, break chains, and guide those who feel lost back toward the presence of God. And you will do it not by force, but by authenticity, by walking in your true identity, by letting the glory of God shine through your confidence, through your peace, through your voice. Because your voice is becoming more powerful now, not just in sound, but in impact. The kind of power Proverbs 18:21 refers to when it says, "Life and death are in the power of the tongue." And your words will begin shaping atmospheres, pulling down strongholds, speaking life into situations others have given up on, because authority has been activated inside you, and this authority will guide you into rooms your ancestors prayed to reach, into opportunities your past could not contain, into impact you once believed belonged to others, because you are no longer operating from limitation. You are operating from divine inheritance. The inheritance described in Romans 8:17, where it says you are an heir of God and a co-heir with Christ. And that inheritance includes courage, wisdom, revelation, protection, and supernatural favor. And that favor will begin to reveal itself in the coming days, in small signs and major shifts, in divine timing and accelerated breakthroughs. And as these manifestations appear, you must remember who you are, not the old version shaped by wounds and fear, but the awakened version being revealed now. The version heaven has always seen, the version your spirit recognizes, the version the world has been waiting for, because you are not just living life, you are fulfilling prophecy written over you long before you were born, the prophecy of purpose, transformation, and divine empowerment. And your next step is simple. Walk boldly, because the season you are entering will not wait for hesitation, and heaven has already confirmed the path ahead. And now it is your turn to align with it, step into it, and rise fully into the calling that has been pulling at your soul for years. Because this is your hour, your moment, your appointed time, and everything in your spirit knows it. Everything in heaven has prepared for it, and everything on earth is about to witness it. So lift your head, steady your heart, and move forward with faith. Because the next chapter of your life is not just different, it is divine.